Ah yes, chocolate, the universal gift for love on Valentine's Day. You decide to have a snack while you draw, and oh my gosh, you picked up the Pocky instead of your pencil. Well, I guess we're painting with chocolate. So here are the chocolate materials we are going to be painting with. We have our big white chocolate. We've got some chocolate chips for melting, our milk and white chocolate pens for doing more fine details, and our red and pink chocolate pens for adding some colored details. So I'm going to be melting these two down and then I think warming the pens up and get to swatching and seeing what sort of disaster we're working with. All right, wow, here we go. Painting with chocolate. So of course I did have to melt down the white chocolate bar and the chocolate chips to get obviously something I can work with. You have to make it soft, usable, spreadable. So that wasn't too hard. But when it came to swatching, I wanted to see the pens and how thin of a line I could get. Unfortunately, the hole for the pens was a lot bigger than I wanted, but I also tested different ways to apply it. So could I get an interesting texture by swinging the pen around? What sort of dots could it make? When it came to the milk chocolate and white chocolate bars, I was mostly concerned about getting different skin tones, so I did combine those two together just to see what sort of range we could get. I was pleasantly surprised by that tan color, so I was pretty excited to create a human character because we had a nice skin tone. An interesting swatch page for sure. It is literally just chocolate. A big culture here is, I think, Deco Choco it's called, so it means decorated chocolate. So you see these little kits and decorated tools pop up in grocery stores and convenience stores, and I thought it would be really fun to make a drawing out of chocolate. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while, so why not do it while in Japan, where decorating chocolate is like a big thing, and there's a few easier tools like little tubes and stuff. But for now, let's sketch a character that we will be drawing either eating chocolate or made out of chocolate. So far, I really do like the idea of her being like a slime girl, but instead of slime, she's chocolate. I've never painted with chocolate before, so we're gonna see how this goes. I'm guessing it's going to go bad, but we're gonna find out. As usual, if you are interested in my other painting with videos, I will have them linked up here. We have painting with wine, painting with tea, coffee, and of course my favorite, painting with my own blood. That's right, painting with my own blood. You heard me. We could give her like a sexy outfit, like a Playboy bunny sort of thing. It is Valentine's. Let's see. Wow, I'm acting like I'm going to be able to get some detail with chocolate. I don't know how this is going to go down. We're going to see. Hopefully not too difficult, huh? Maybe she could be laying down, so let's see, maybe. Probably should have looked up a reference for this one. Whoops. That's okay. I mean, this is kind of a weird pose, but it's fun. It's interesting. Oh, we should give her buck teeth. Okay, I guess I'm really going to combine Easter and Valentine's Day a little bit here. Kind of a weird but fun pose, but I think I'm actually gonna go for this one up here. I like that one. I think it's kind of silly, kind of fun. Yeah, so let's swatch our chocolates and see what we're dealing with. And then get to creating our Valentine's Day Easter bunny. This is going to be a disaster, but I'm very excited. Okay, so just like every single painting with video, I was super nervous to get into this illustration because chocolate is a lot more solid and 3D, and it just didn't seem like it was going to be the easiest to work with. You have to keep it warm or it gets solid pretty quickly. Most of the other materials I have worked with in my painting with series, they seem pretty liquidy and they dry as watercolor does. It's a lot more similar to painting with watercolor, especially when it came to coffee, tea, even my blood. But the chocolate, you know, we're getting a lot further away from the liquid form and into a more solid situation. So I was pretty nervous, but I was really interested to see what I could make of this. So going into it, I thought I would start off with the body. I don't know why. I think the fact that the red pen had a more liquidy chocolate just kind of gave me the confidence boost I needed to get started into this illustration. And I actually had quite a few options as to how I was going to apply the chocolate. I could either take the pen directly onto the paper, squirt some out in the vague shape of what I was trying to paint, and then smear it around from there. I bought some plastic tools at the dollar store and I sort of used them as a palette knife. That was another option to spread it around. Or I could do what I tend to do the most in this video and I could take a brush. Now, I was definitely not going to be ruining any of my nice actual watercolor paint brushes. So I went ahead and bought a $1 brush just to make sure that if there was any damage done, it would have been to a $1 brush and I would have been okay with that. To be honest, using the brush wasn't that bad. I think the worst part was that once the chocolate did start to cool off and solidify, I was left with this brush that was clumpy and I absolutely could not use it as a brush because it became a solid chunk form, which was basically like using a palette knife but made out of chocolate. But I persisted, and you will notice several times I bring in my hair dryer to reactivate the chocolate. The hair dryer was definitely my best friend, and I'm very happy that I thought about using the hair dryer, which is kind of funny because it does the actual opposite that it does with watercolors. I use a hair dryer when working with watercolors to speed up the drying process and so that I can keep working faster. But while painting with chocolate, I was often using the hair dryer to reactivate the chocolate. In other words, I was melting the chocolate so that I was able to still spread it around. I also use the hair dryer to reactivate my paintbrush. So whenever my paintbrush got too clumped up with cooled off chocolate, I was able to use the hair dryer to melt the chocolate off of the paintbrush so that I was able to keep using it. Though to be honest, it wasn't working that well. But the hair dryer did absolute wonders when reactivating or remelting the chocolate once it was on the paper, and I was able to continue spreading the chocolate around and doing what I needed to get this painting done. And my gosh, was this not a process. I actually got into it and I was having a lot of fun once I got into the swing of things of reactivating the chocolate, learning which ways were the best to apply the chocolate onto the page. And mixing colors was also something that was not only very familiar to mixing paint, but also not familiar to mixing paint. The big dum-dum I am, always forgetting that when you add color to white, it changes the white a lot more rapidly than you think it would be. So I added way too much brown and especially way too much red to the skin tone, and I wasted a lot of white chocolate, but thankfully I did buy a lot as backup. So when mixing her skin tone, I approached it the same exact way I approach mixing skin tones with paints. I got the white chocolate, I got the milk chocolate, and added just a little bit of the red because every skin tone pigment has some red in it because we have blood in our bodies. So we do have a little bit of a blushy pink tone, and I wanted to make sure that our character had a little bit of life to her because I felt like just using brown would it would be dull. So if I added just a smidge of red, it would give her a little bit of a blush color, and it was very cute. But oh my gosh, this was probably the hardest painting with video. Chocolate was just, it cooled off so fast. It was really hard to spread. And not even halfway through this video, I was starting to wonder, am I going to give up? Is this a big epic failure for a painting with video? But I'm really happy that I pushed through. I was able to continue learning how to work with the chocolate, whether that be spreading it in its liquid state, or even after it had cooled and solidified, I would go over with the plastic tool and sort of smooth things out and push it around, or even shave off bits that were a little too textured and needed to be smoothed down. Again, using the hair dryer really helped with this process. If anything was ever too chunky or too streaky, I just hit it with the hair dryer, melted it down, and then took a tool and smoothed things out. So it was quite the process learning how to work with the chocolate in a painted form. I've worked with chocolate to create silly decorations, and it is so much easier when you're decorating something like cookies, but when you're trying to paint with it, oh boy, it's quite different. I think the part that I am the most happy with this painting is the weird gradient shadow of her back leg. It isn't much, I'll admit. It's really not a whole lot of shading. It's not a lot of gradient, but what I was able to achieve, what little bit of shadow and gradient I was able to get with chocolate, I'm just really happy with, and I think it turned out really good. I think my biggest concern with some of these colors was making sure that you were able to tell the different parts of her body apart when they were interacting, whether it be with her boobs and her arm or her two legs where they touch. I just wanted to make sure when you looked at this illustration, you could tell what was going on and each part was separated. So that brought me to the question on if I was going to be using line art with this illustration. If you are familiar with my art style, I normally use line art with my illustrations, but I'm not unfamiliar with a lineless style, which I do enjoy. So when it came to this illustration, I really had to ask myself if I was going to use a line art or not. If I wasn't going to use line art, then I really needed to make sure that each part, like I mentioned, was very separate and you could distinguish her body parts if they were to overlap. So I did decide not to use line art because the main reason was that the pens were just too thick of a line and it was just too difficult to get a nice thin line art with a brush or literally any other tool. The chocolate was just drying way too quickly, and by drying, I mean cooling down. So I did decide to go lineless except for areas that I felt like really needed the reinforcement of line art. So around her headband with the ears, because the white on the white page was just a little too hard to see, or areas where her body parts did overlap. I wanted to make sure that they were just easily distinguishable. Speaking of the tips of the pens, the red got clogged up at some point and the back end of the pen exploded all over my hands, so whoops. So after I finished the piece, I realized that I used the white of the page instead of using the white chocolate, which was really annoying to me. So I had to go back and add white chocolate in the white parts, which was great because the tail is my favorite part. I added a lot of texture to it and it's really cute and it's a fluffy tail and I like it. And that's it. So why not go out there, get yourself some Valentine's Day sale chocolate and paint with it. Wouldn't recommend. Okay, stay golden. But before I go, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons for all of their support. You guys are amazing. If you want coloring pages or early access to my videos, check out my Patreon link in the description. Thank you guys so much for the support. Bye.